You are listening to the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, and life-giving relationships. Why focus on relationships? Because the quality of our intimate partnerships and close connections influences our health, happiness, and longevity more than anything else in our lives. Relationships matter a lot, so together, let's jump into the mud, aka our messy relationships, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and create an enriching environment where strong relationships can take root. I am your grateful host, Dara. I am a recovering relational disaster working toward relational mastery. I am a certified positive psychology coach and relationship mindset coach at Mud Coaching. I work with teens and adults from all over the world, and I am ecstatic to get to talk to you about the one thing that lights my fire more than anything else in life, and that is learning how to create healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships that we all desire to have. So let's dive in. Today on the Embrace the Mud podcast, we are wrapping up our series dealing with unmet needs by addressing the crucial practice of mindfully managing your expectations so that you can find the peace that comes with having expectations that make sense and are likely to be met. When it comes to needs, we often start off thinking that because a need exists, our expectations around it are automatically feasible. But it's more complicated than that. For one thing, our needs are ours to fulfill. And part of that is noticing who is able and willing to help us fulfill them and who isn't. And then making sure our expectations are created based on the information that we gather as we observe, communicate, and negotiate with our partners and other people in our lives. In this series so far, we have covered the importance of understanding your own needs versus your desires and being clear on what both are. We've talked about what it looks like to clearly communicate your needs to others in a way that gets heard and supported. And we've also discussed two crucial elements of getting your own needs met. First, being able to adequately meet your own needs to the fullest extent possible. And second, being able and willing to support the needs of others adequately. And now we're going to assume that you've done all of that. As a result, your needs are being met more fully. There's clarity, understanding, and agreements in place that set you up for success. And things are going mostly well. But you've noticed there are some needs that have been expressed in one or more of your relationships that remain a struggle. So what do you do next? What typically happens is there is a continued attempt to enforce the fulfillment of the agreement that's been made around a particular need. But if it's been a good amount of time and the need is going totally or partially unmet, it's probably time to recognize and accept that an adjustment needs to be made. And that begins with a bit of inquiry and investigation. Perhaps in theory, what you agreed to seemed feasible and realistic, but in practice, it turns out that it's not actually doable or not doable in a sustainable way. That could be for a variety of reasons, and staying open and wanting to understand what's going on is going to be key. For instance, maybe you and your partner agreed to go on a weekly date night out on the town or to an event in an effort to fulfill a need for you. But after a couple of months, you've only gone out on 3 to 4 dates. You could keep pushing for the weekly date, or you can get curious about what's getting in the way and discuss what to do next that would ultimately satisfy the desire to go out and have fun together regularly so that your need for connection is met, but in a way that is doable and sustainable. If your partner reveals that they are stressed about money or are feeling really tired or just simply don't enjoy going out as much as you do, then it's important to address those things and end up with a solution that is ultimately supportive for both of you. I've often seen partners agree to things that they don't really want to do or that infringe on their own needs or desires in some way out of fear of rocking the boat or upsetting the person that they love. If we are getting our needs met, but it's coming at the expense of our partner's peace of mind or their own preferences in some major way, or what we're asking just requires them to stretch like far beyond their baseline way of being, then that isn't a fair expectation. In some cases, it could be that you can bargain and add to the agreements rather than change the agreements. Like, hey, how about you go on a weekly date with me, as we previously agreed, so that I can get dressed up and get out of the house and spend that time with you. And then what is something that I can do for you that you would really enjoy or appreciate, but that might be outside of my normal go-to activities or interests? Is there anything like that that would make this agreement mutually fulfilling? I imagine that there are some of you rolling your eyes right now going like, well, if my partner really loves me, why wouldn't they just do that for me? Or if I have to bargain to get my needs met, isn't that a sign that we're like just not compatible? Or that, if it's this hard, then maybe the relationship just isn't right. First, I'll say you are correct. You're not compatible. Nobody is compatible to the extent that you want to spend your time in the exact same ways and do all of the exact same activities and spend money the exact same way and give and receive love in the same ways. Incompatibility exists in every single relationship, and it's in the compromises and the bargains we make and the influence that we allow our partner to have over us that makes us more and more compatible over time. Secure functioning relationships require us to take care of ourselves and our partner simultaneously. If something is only good for one of us, it's good for neither of us. So we keep searching for a win-win until we find one. Our willingness to bend and change and grow in the direction of our partner and they in our direction is how compatibility increases. It happens inside the relationship over time. We make choices along the way on how and when to bend, and then we adjust our expectations to each other's willingness and abilities. As I mentioned, mutual bending and shifting is essential. When it comes to your own needs, sometimes the adjustment needs to happen inside of you. If you are requesting attention in a particular way, but your partner struggles to fulfill that request, then you might have to learn to receive attention in other ways and appreciate the attention they do give enough to feel fulfilled by it. I love my husband very much, but if he suddenly approached me and said his need for significance isn't being met and he'd like for me to spend an hour a night playing video games with him, that would be a tough thing for me to oblige to and fulfill consistently. There would have to be some negotiation, and I trust we'd land someplace where he would bend and start to recognize and appreciate other ways in which I demonstrate how much he matters to me, and I would maybe agree to play sometimes, but not nightly. And I'd want to bargain on my own behalf as well, because video gaming is really not an enjoyable pastime for me at all. But because I want him to have his need met in the way that he wants, I'd seize the opportunity to at least try and find a win-win where we can both be quite happy with the arrangement made in the end. So here are 3 qualifiers that might help you determine whether an expectation you have is a reasonable and healthy one or one that needs to be adjusted somehow. Number 1, the expectation doesn't require the other person to consistently sacrifice their own needs, major preferences, or to stretch too far outside of their innate way of being. Number 2, there is an explicit agreement that feels fair and mutual to both of you. And number 3, there is a demonstrated ability by the other person to meet your expectations. So in summary, it's each of our responsibility to meet our own needs. And in the framework of secure functioning, we want our partner's needs to be fulfilled alongside our own. If a person isn't willing or able to fulfill our requests in the way we would like, or if they just don't do it consistently, we really only have 2 options. We can come to terms with that, make new agreements, adjust our expectations, and choose to appreciate the other ways that they do meet our needs or add value to our lives, or we can end the relationship. A big part of being able to navigate the choppy waters of needs and expectations successfully is knowing what in the end is truly enough for you and what isn't. It's important to know what it looks like to settle on something different than you imagined because you realize there's an alternative way to be fulfilled, versus to settle for a relationship or partner that isn't a good match for who you are and what you need in order to experience a secure and satisfying attachment. Next week, we will explore the topic of a good enough relationship. What does one look like? How do you know if you have that? And how can you tell when it's really not enough and truly best to walk away? I hope you enjoyed today's episode and got something useful out of it. If you enjoyed this series, I want to tell you that I'm about to launch a group coaching program called No More Unmet Needs. More details on that will be coming very soon, and if you want to make sure to stay in the loop about this program launch, you can email me at dara@mudcoaching.com to be added to my email list and receive all the updates. If you're loving this podcast, please subscribe, follow, and write a quick review. Your feedback and follows are extremely valuable for the growth of the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships. Until next time, please remember, you are wired for love and connection. You are capable of love and connection. You are worthy of love and connection.